Welcome to Dan's haunted cottage. Step inside if you dare.
Hi there guys, just want to bring you another video from Dan's haunted cottage. This one is a bit unusual really, even for kind of my paranormal vlogs or videos that I put up. This one is quite unusual because this one involves me. This is something I haven't told anybody really. I mean, I've told friends in my field of work, they know about it, and those are friends in my paranormal field of work. And I used to work with an exorcist, a real bona fide exorcist. And this guy was sanctioned to do it. He was cleared to do it. He'd been trained. Although the natural instincts that he had were actually inside him. They were inherent in him. I don't know about the prehistory of his family and stuff. But I know that his wife was, she did clearances as well on properties of negative energies. And I worked with him for quite a few years. He was really an interesting guy. He was honest. He was you know, straight as they come. He wouldn't pull any false tricks on you. And he was the type of guy as well that wasn't shaken by anything. And I really enjoyed working with him. And the only reason that we didn't work together for a lot longer is because we sort of moved further apart, and that's the only reason. And I haven't kept contact with him, or I must catch up with him at some point, because he was extremely good at what he did. Now, there were two examples that I can think of where not only was the property haunted, but individuals in the property were possessed. And this guy had quite a good record of clearing possessions, and not in a theft way, you understand, clearing possessions by spirit of people. And there were a couple of investigations. The interesting thing was that the two people that I'm going to mention, the two people who we investigated, who we did clearance or he did clearances for, and I just assisted him. In actual fact, I didn't really do much, just kind of helped him here and there investigate and accrue information and try and ascertain what the problems were and what it could possibly be that was haunting them or possessing them and causing them problems. Now, one of the properties that we did was in Bedfordshire, and a guy and his family had this property, and he'd never really settled very well in this property, and it had made him feel quite depressed to the point of where he thought, I just can't carry on with this. And he didn't realise that his wife was feeling exactly the same way herself, but they never really spoke to each other about it. They both knew that there was a supernatural problem going on there, but they both never really sat down and discussed the problem with each other. They just kind of pushed it to the back, which is something you shouldn't do. I mean, they acknowledged it was there, and I think that through draining their energies and through possessing them, whatever it was gaining the energy source to become stronger and get a lot worse. Anyway, I turned up at the address prior to my friend, the exorcist, by about an hour. I wanted to get there and take some information from the people and try and work out exactly what we were dealing with and who we were dealing with, and whether they had any prior information regarding the history of the property, which they did. Now, the guy himself had seen a lady at the top of the stairs, and he'd also seen her, I believe, mid-stairs as well. And his milkman came by one day, and he wasn't at home, and he saw something move inside the house, and he didn't know what it was, but he said to him, I was around your house the other day, but there's something about, I don't know what it was, but something was moving in the hallway in your house. And he said, yeah, he said, there's this person who keeps appearing, or spirit that keeps appearing on our stairwell. She's appeared 3 or 4 times. She's even appeared in the children's bedroom, and the children have seen her, but the children were nonplussed by her. They weren't frightened by her, and neither were the parents either. And he described the lady to the milkman, and the milkman said, yes, I knew her. The lady you just described is a lady that had this house quite a few years ago. He'd had the milk around for a long while. And unfortunately, she'd had a heart attack on the stairs, and she fell from the top to the bottom, and she broke her neck, and she was found dead at the bottom of the stairs. So from that, he worked out exactly who he was dealing with. And as he said, she wasn't a problem. But there was one night early in the morning, the children kept complaining about this man that was going around, and he was hanging around by the door of the bedroom, and he kept looking at them, and he was quite menacing, and it really, really disturbed them. And he saw shadows and movement by the children's bedroom. And then one night he woke up, and the apparition was in the bedroom looking at them, although he could still only make out the outline of it as far as I can remember. But he did wake up another morning, and there was a child playing with a train set right at the bottom of the bed. He could just see him, and he kind of got up and he looked, and obviously he was wide awake by this point. The child was just still there playing with a model train set, and he described the child, the way the child was dressed, it seemed like it was sort of late 19th, sort of early 20th century clothing, and he thinks it was the spirit of a child that once lived there. In fact, we think it might, well, I thought that it might have been as well, but as it turns out. Anyway, whilst I was in the house and I was getting the information and correlating all the information, I started to feel sick and oppressed, very oppressed. And it's like when you walk into a room, the way I can describe it, you know when people have an argument or there's a bad atmosphere in an environment and you know nothing about it prior to going in there, and then you walk in there and they say you can cut the atmosphere with a knife. It was like that, only it was very, very oppressive. I felt very, very sick, like I wanted to get out of that house and be physically sick. But I didn't want to tell them that because, you know, I didn't really want to frighten them, and I didn't want them to think that I was being rude. But, you know, these guys had lived in this oppressive environment for quite a few years, and it wasn't getting better, it was getting increasingly worse. So my friend turned up, and they got there, as I say, about an hour later, and I made the excuse that I had to go outside to greet him and explain things to him. It wasn't really the case that I had to do that, although I just wanted to get out of that house. I wanted to tell him exactly what I felt was wrong with it, or exactly what was going on with me physically and psychologically. And I wanted to also get out of the house and get fresh air. And he said to me, look, it's okay, it's fine, don't worry, we'll go in there, we'll try and sort this out. So the hallway in particular was very, very dark, and there was no reason it should have been. There was a great big sort of light hanging up. There was probably two, actually no, there was two. There was one by the kitchen, and there was one around the corner where the dog slept in the hall at the back of the stairs, and then there was a massive one as you walked in. But it just felt gloomy and oppressive. And so we'd spent a few hours in there, and he said to me, look, we need to go upstairs, we need to find the source of this haunting. We need to pinpoint exactly where it was. So we went upstairs and we recorded it on video, we recorded it all on film, and it was tangible. When we went into the main bedroom, went into the children's bedroom first of all, and he snapped right bang on the button. He knew exactly we didn't know exactly what was going on in there, but he knew something was going on in there that wasn't quite right. So then he traced the energy source to the main bedroom. And in doing so, we went into the main bedroom, we closed the door, we made sure that the family were out of the way, we didn't want them anywhere near what was going on, they'd suffered enough. And interestingly enough, he felt the oppression, and he saw the darkness in this property as well. I mean, it was tangible, it was gloomy, it was dark, it was oppressive, it was just awful. And so he went upstairs and he said, look, I think this is a guy. He said, I'm sure this is a man that's haunting this property. And the image of the child, he said, I think is just him putting that image into people's minds. He's just perpetrating or portraying that image to give people a false sense of security, because obviously people associate children with innocence, and they don't think there's anything amiss, even if they see them in spirit. So that's what he tried to do. He was a very, very crafty and very, very cunning individual, spirit, as he was saying. And we went in there, and he was talking to the spirit, and then he did his thing, and it got darker. It got a lot darker. It was almost like, now I don't know, a lot of you guys that do paranormal investigations and have done it for many years, you'll know when things take a turn for, not necessarily the worst, but when things take a turn for the paranormal, that no matter how dark it is where you are, you get a feeling, and then in an instant, it will be like somebody's thrown a cloak over you. Everything goes completely black. It's like it gets darker. You can feel it just crawling and creeping in on you and almost smothering you. And it got to that point, and he did his thing, and I'm not going to tell you what he did, because that's something that he did which was private to him and personal to him. And he cleared, it took a long time, but there was more than one negative energy in the property, and he cleared it. And at the end of it, the smell had gone. It was so bad, the smell, that it had left this taste, this aftertaste in your mouth. It was real negative, strong energy. And he cleared it, and in doing so, I noticed straight away that it wasn't as claustrophobic. It was, it was clearly a lot cleaner. The atmosphere was a lot cleaner. You could breathe properly. You felt happier. You didn't feel enclosed. You didn't feel as though you were cloistered up. And even the hallway that was the darkest part of the house was magnificent. It was absolutely lit up. It was absolutely bright. And he also picked up on the spirit of the lady, which he had no prior knowledge of. We didn't give him that information. That's something that we never give to a medium. And this was a private house as well, and it was just somebody that I knew who got me in, and so I didn't know that much about it, and he knew even less than me. And that's the way to keep it with mediums. Don't give them anything. Let them, if they're good mediums and they're good at their job and they know what they're doing, they'll come in and they'll pick up on it without asking questions. They can just read into the environment. And as I say, my feelings. I'm not very big on mediums. I think a lot of it is nonsense with them. But this guy was pretty on the button. He was pretty good at what he did, and he was one of the only mediums that I would have ever worked with. Really, he's one of the only mediums that I would choose to work with. Let's just say that. And then we left the property, and it had cleared. The house had cleared, and the environment had cleared, and it was okay. There were other bits going on there, but they're personal things that I can't really divulge over the internet or on YouTube. And then we went to the second house. And the second house, I turned up again prior to everybody getting there. I like to get there, and I like to ascertain what was going on, what the background of the property was. Now, the first house was very early Victorian. You're looking at early 1800s, maybe early to 1810 to 1830, something around that point it was built. So it was quite an old property, not really old, but it was it had been there for 100 and odd years. Whereas the second property was it had been built in the 70s, 80s. So it was a fairly new property. What you have to remember is it's not always the property that holds the key to a haunting. Sometimes it's the environment that you're in, the land that it's on. This land has been there forever. We don't know what's taken place on it. We don't know what was on it prior to, prehistory, or even going back hundreds of years. We just don't know. So it could be the key to the haunting is in the land. So we went to the second house, and that's a story for another time. But I will tell you about it in another story. And it was quite interesting because the second house involved a possession, and I saw it in the individual firsthand as I was questioning him. And I'm not going to tell you too much. That's a story for another time. So that's the story of the exorcist that I worked with, who's a good person, good man. And I must make contact with him again and see if we can work together again at some point. But he was very good at his job, and he was called out by various people to help. And he must have helped hundreds of people over the years, and as I say, he was honourable. So that's it, guys. So I'll tell you the other story another time. It's very dry in here. Look out for each other, look after each other, and be kind to one another. And I will speak to you soon.